Good morning, students. So welcome to the 7th presentation for LSK3701 Life Skills, Science and Technology Teaching in the Foundation Phase. I am your lecturer, Mrs. A Carrim, and you can email me on ecarrier1@unisa.ac.za. So we're looking at Learning Unit 6 today. So when it comes to Learning Unit 6, you'll notice in the previous Learning Unit, you were introduced to information technology and how it can be used in teaching and learning. In Learning Unit 6, we're basically planning for technology teaching and assessment. And on completion of this learning unit, you should be able to, identify and interpret technology process skills in design activities, of the technological problem-solving approach, and also cite appropriate examples that demonstrate an understanding of concepts and process skills relating to technology. You also need to analyze and interpret the technological problem-solving teaching approach, by integrating mathematics, language, and creativity within the teaching approach, and also identify suitable context for the application of the technological problem solving approach and the integration of mathematics, language, and creativity. You're also compiling research reports in which you demonstrate the ability to design your own practice based on technological problem solving approach and the integration of mathematics, language, and creativity, and developing theme plans, according to the technological problem solving approach and the integration of mathematics, language, and creativity. You're also going to apply your understanding of assessment of technology education in the foundation phase. So this is also quite an important unit that obviously comes down, from Learning Unit 1. So if you don't have a good understanding of the previous units, you'll find this learning unit rather, challenging. So the key concepts in this specific learning unit is the design process skills, which you are familiar with, the theme plan based on the stages of the design process, integration within a theme plan based on the stages of the design process, as well as assessment in technology education. So before I start with the considerations for planning design activities, I must, inform you that the purpose of this learning unit is also that you reflect on the different design process skills and how, to develop plans and formulate strategies for teaching these skills to foundation phase learners. You also need to analyze teaching plans and, strategies in respect of their suitability in promoting the development of the design process skills among foundation phase learners. So the design process and its problem solving and creative nature were discussed in Learning Unit 4. Learning Unit 5 also described the nature of teaching, in terms of computers and other technological devices. In this learning unit, the theoretical side of technology education is applied to actual teaching, specifically the development of learner activities and, assessments that focus on information gathering skills as well as problem solving skills and creativity. So when we're looking at the considerations, for planning design activities, let's first look at figure 6.1 actually in your study guide. That basically is is known as the design process that is central to the development of creativity, problem solving skills, and information gathering skills. So if you look at this diagram, it shows you that learner activities that follow the design process, develop creativity, they develop information gathering skills, and they develop problem solving skills, which is very important in the foundation phase, classrooms. So when we're looking at the considerations for planning design activities, in this section, you need to be able to describe how design activities provide the means for learning, about big ideas and developing habits of body and mind that we learned in the previous learning units. And also by looking at the curriculum topics, and how they are set out alongside possible big ideas. And the examples are given of the design process activities for young learners in figure, I think it's table 4.2. So the table shows neither the content areas for technology education, in terms of structures, processing and systems and control, nor habits of body or mind. So we need to now consider that, for example, transport related theme, given in table 4.2, and show how knowledge trends of technology and habits of body and mind are developed through the design process. So you can basically ask yourself these questions. What is the design process central to? What considerations should be made for a design activity based on a topic? Use examples to show your understanding. You can also use an appropriate topic in science, science and technology, and follow the design stages and give learner activities per stage, and identify habits of body, habits of mind, at each stage, so that your lesson is basically, very informed, and very suitable for your foundation phase students. So when you're looking at a topic like transport, for instance, looking at transports in terms of the intuitive idea, how does it move? In terms of science, you'll talk of energy and change. When it comes to technology, systems and control, the big idea would be cause and effect. An example of a design and make activity would be maybe designing boats that can move and float on water. So you need to ask your students, and basically you need to think about this. Why do you think a topic like transport can be described as one in which learners will develop the intuitive ideas and how things move? How the topic transport is connected to science, trend, energy, and change. How is the topic transport connected to technology trends, systems, and control? And why do you think learner activities such as designing and making a sailboat could develop learners' understanding of cause and effect? So this is the things that you need to ask yourself, when creating an activity in the foundation phase. So this is basically what I was mentioning in the previous slide, how you need to consider a technological problem in the foundation phase and develop a theme using the design process activity. And when you're doing this, consider an investigation activity for a theme plan for designing and building a model in the foundation phase. Remember when young learners push toy cars or see how toy sailboats move in the wind, they experience how things move and they see that a force must be applied, by hand that pushes a toy car or the wind that blows this sailboat. So without this push or pull, there would be no movement, So this is where you think of cause and effect and things. So young children develop the concept of movement, namely that an object moves when a force is applied to it. And when they play with the toy cars very early on, if they are given the opportunity to play with cars, this is known as intuitive knowledge. So when there is movement, energy must be available. So can you see how everything relates to each other? So the hand that pushes a toy car transfers energy from the person's body to the toy car. And wind energy causes a sailboat to move. So the topic transport is therefore linked to energy and change. So this is very important that you understand. And machines like cars and boats have mechanisms, such as wheels, pulleys, which form part of the mechanical system. So therefore, cars and boats are related to the systems and control. So this is where you can understand that aspect of it. So lastly, also there is evidence of cause and effect that I mentioned. The cause of movement could be the push of a toy car by a young child or the wind of the sail of a sailboat. So the effect is movement of the toy car or the sailboat. So table 6.1 that is in your study guide, but also on this presentation, shows that if you teach topics in which there are learner-centered scientific investigations and technology design activities, the learning of big ideas can be planned. So table 6.2 is an example of how the topic water transport can be used to plan, design activities for learners. And the plan activities revolve around designing and, making sailboats such as used by people, off the east coast of Africa. So this focus was chosen because it links to the transport topic of the curriculum and the indigenous knowledge of African people. So the design activities listed, start with a problem based on transporting people and goods on water. And before learners start working on the design process activities, as a teacher, you should find out what they know about water transport, and what they know or don't know will influence how they relate to the problem that you've, put in context. So as a teacher, you must consider the cultural, historical aspects of learning as described in section A. So this table below, you can see the activities are sequenced according to the design stages, described in Learning Unit 4, and the table also links to habit of body, mind, to some activities as well. So very important for you to go through tables. I think this was 6.1. Now you're looking at table 6.2 for a more, detailed, basically detailed information on examples of learning activities that can be done under the topic transport. So it's important that you look at that as well. Where you identify the problem. Remember, investigate, design, make, evaluate, communicate. So when you're looking at a problem that's basically identified, a learner listens to a story about a family, who have to move their belongings from one place to another. And then when you come to investigate, the learner gathers information and tries to grasp concepts and gain insight, as they find out about new techniques to solve technological problems. They use information processing skills. So after the problem, that is, moving people and goods along the coast, has been stated, learners can start investigating, gathering information about different kinds of sails, boats. And as learners investigate different sails, they can also understand how the systems work, in terms of, maybe writing short paragraphs about what they have learned in the investigations. When we're looking at design process, they follow a design brief and design specifications, and possible solutions are drawn on paper, and then obviously they need to find the best solution that satisfies their specifications. So, and learners can actually draw the ideas of sailboats as a learner activity. They can also work in groups and choose and develop the best solutions for moving goods and people along the coast. And then also facilitate the making process is an easier option within this, when we go to the making step, where the learners use tools and materials to develop a solution to the identified problem. And this is where learners actually make the model of the sailboats. When they're evaluating, they actually will evaluate, whether they boats, according to the specifications made, do the boats float. It's very important that a boat can float, and they in order for it to move, they need wind. So maybe probably bring in a fan into the classroom. And when they're communicating, the learners' drawings and written work, such as the design brief, the design specification, and reports, it's always important for them to communicate the process, because this is where they start making meaning of what they have done in the classroom. Now we're looking at, developing your own theme using the design process activities. So let's think about the design of, for example, a dog house. If you're developing learner activities about how animals grow and change, and how we should care for our pets, by feeding them and giving them clean water, the learners must actually say that pets need to be kept warm and clean, and dry. And a problem statement could be made about the need to build a house for a pet dog, that will keep the pet dry and warm. So remember to start the teaching of the theme by finding out what learners find out from the learners how many of them have pets at home. This is an important question to ask. You may want to keep a pet such as a hamster for that time that you're dealing with the topic of caring about pets, since many learners have not had that experience of caring pets. So you also need to refer back to table 4.2, where where the beginning knowledge topics in the CAPS document life skills for foundation phase are classified according to the science trends. So you also need to note the big ideas that we've learned in the previous units, that should form the basis of your discussion in terms of relationship and interdependence, place, cause, and effect. So obviously, in this sense, we will focus also on relationships and interdependence. If you look at table 6.3, there's considerations for design activities based on building a house for a pet dog. And now we're looking at how the topic would be how animals grow and change. The intuitive idea about biology would be how do I fit? The science strain will be life and living. The technology strain will be structures. When it comes to the big ideas, you're looking at relationships and interdependence, place, cause, and effect. And obviously, the activity would be to design and make a model for a house dog. So remember how animals and humans grow and change throughout their lifetime is one of the fundamental big ideas of biology or life sciences. So the big ideas of biology are found in the knowledge strain, life and living. And children will experience growth and change within their bodies and will notice it in their pets or other animals in their environment. So also when you look at puppies, they become big dogs and then older dogs, and they cannot run as fast as younger dogs. So learners need to see these changes in their they probably I know I mean learners probably see these changes, maybe in their own families, whether it be their grannies and grandfathers. And learners also see that there are basically relationships between people. For example, learners rely on their parents and caregivers, for basically to feed them and keep them safe. So there's interdependence on one hand, and children basically rely on the caregivers for guidance and love, and also caregivers need help around the house, things like that. So the same applies to humans and pet dogs. So remember, dogs can protect us and be our friends. They are dependent on us for food and shelter. That is why a design and build activity for a model of a dog house will lead to an understanding of the big idea about relationships and interdependence. So we also need to consider a theme plan for learner activities for the design and construction of a model of a dog house. So you're also going to look at table 6.4. Let me see if I haven't added it there. It's actually quite lengthy, so you need to go through your study guide. So your theme plan for learner activities developing, for a design of building a dog house, you need to first identify the need or a problem, investigate, design and plan again, organize and make, evaluate the product, process or system, and communicate. So remember, each step needs to be done in this way. As a teacher, you need to set the scene and, allow them to identify the need or a problem, whether it be through a story, TV program, newspaper article, or community event. That's how you set the context in the classroom and make them more interested in the whole process. When they're investigating, allow them to gather information, and brainstorm ideas, maybe have a discussion where they can share ideas, find information in books, watch videos, YouTube, listen to guest speakers. There's a lot of things you can consider. It just depends on the school that you're teaching and the resources available to you. When you're designing and planning, learners should develop initial ideas and choose the best one. We need to incorporate that as well. There's always so many ideas, and they can only choose one that would be most suitable to the context. Organize and make, learners should be allowed the opportunity to organize the tools and materials they need, and allow them actions that include measuring, marking, cutting, joining, finishing off, evaluating, whether they meet the specifications of a checklist, reflect on the process and write a short report, where they can communicate, be it orally, writing, graphical. So these are all things that are very important as well. Let's look at now, the assessment and technology. There's a lot of sections where I haven't touched on in this presentation because it's quite lengthy, and it's something that you need to go into, in terms of investigation during the design process, drawing freehand sketches during the design process, as well as I think it's creativity and originality, all of that. Now, when you also need to understand how to develop your own theme plan of the design process activities. Remember, a theme plan for designing and making, whether it be, for example, puppets, using printed cloth, it needs to have maybe a problem. In this case, you can decide on a problem or challenge and then groups can present the puppet show, whether it be in the classroom. And it's a very fun way to learn. So you may feel apprehensive at this point. Remember, there's no right or wrong theme plan. As long as you follow the template and understand each stage, you should be able to make a plan for different learner activities. And planning lessons can be very daunting. I know, as a teacher myself, just remember that you may not necessarily do it correctly the first time, but the more you practice, the better you will get at it. So please do give it a try. Okay, so we're looking at assessment in technology education now. So when a theme plan based on design and make problem solving activities is developed, the second last stage is known as the evaluation stage. And this stage gives learners a chance to evaluate their products, through self or peer assessment. And as a teacher, you need to lead the process of evaluation, by discussing what could be considered a successful product or not. And the success of the product will depend on the specifications agreed upon, during the design process. So in some cases, such as when a learner, perhaps build a car or bridges, the teacher can hold a competition, allowing informal evaluation of the products the learners made. In the case of cars, the competition could be a race. Um, in the case of bridges, the competition could be which bridge can carry the most weight before it breaks. So the winning product is the one that goes the fastest or furthest or the strongest. So you can see how you can make the lesson exciting for our young learners. So if you look at in our example of the puppet show, about insect metamorphosis that is noted in the study guide, evaluation could be focused on puppet shows. Puppet shows can be really entertaining and a fun way to learn in the classroom. So when you're looking at the criteria, for basically a puppet, developing, making a theme plan on puppets, you will create different checklists. So for checklists for making a puppet, you would see if the learner selected the correct materials. Did they select the correct tools for measuring? Are they measuring accurately using formal or informal units? Mark the cutting lines. So this is how you get students to make sure that they've gone through each specification or criteria accurately. So remember, you will be expected to create your own checklist, and this is very important as a teacher to be able to create these checklists that help to ensure that our young learners don't miss out important steps in the learning process. Okay, so when we're looking at the making stage of the design process, it's also important that, process skills relevant to the making of, for example, a puppet is followed. We're trying to teach our young learners, to first get all the materials and tools together, then measure and mark, then they can cut, then they can join, then they can finish off, and then, can evaluate, does the puppet actually move as required? Does the puppet represent the stage of if the theme is insect metamorphosis? Does the puppet show, explain, after they do the puppet show, does it actually explain how insect metamorphosis happens? This phase is very important. I know it seems like a lot of information to take, but once it's something that you understand, you'll always go through this stages, without even looking at your work. You will be able to easily create a lesson plan, following the steps without even, going back to your content area. That's how it needs to be part of you, because remember, you going into the teaching profession, and it's important that whatever you learn in this learning unit becomes part of your lesson planning as well. Okay, so we've come to the end of this presentation. There's a lot of sections that I haven't touched on. It's basically within this, planning for assessment within the design process. You'll see on table 6.6 in the study guide, where assessment plan for a theme based on the design process for puppet making is also done in detail for you. Where they even bring in language skills. They show you how to, incorporate group work, how to incorporate mathematics, So this is also very important that you go through and understand the assessment of the investigation stage, how you can assess the design stage, or, the drawing stage. Yeah, so basically, there is no need to assess each stage, skill, or concept for every project. On the other end, you as a teacher may decide not to assess specific stages, skills, or concepts separately, but to assess the overall project. So in that case, you may develop a checklist similar to the one given in table 6.8, and it is an example of a checklist for the assessment of the puppet that I mentioned. You will notice that the checklist like this does not assess deeper learning, such as the use of language, understanding of mathematical concepts, or creativity, in terms of originality and elaboration. So these kind of checklists do assess technological problem solving by the design process. But if you decide to develop a checklist such as this one, you should include the learner's design folios, when the teacher assessment is complete. So you could also adapt the checklist. Remember to be a self or peer assessment. So remember to go through all of these checklists that are within your study guide. When you do the activities as well, you will be able to see how you did in the activity. Were you able to apply the knowledge you gained from the unit to plan how you'd carry out formative assessments? Also think about how the formative assessment of these skills and concepts inform your teaching strategy. So remember, the reason for formative assessments or assessment for learning is to inform your practice. What skills would learners need extra support with? Can they, for example, measure accurately in centimeters? If not, what support will you give them? With that, we come to the end of this learning unit. And on developing theme plans that follow activities in the design process. So I hope you enjoyed learning about teaching technology in the foundation phase. In this last unit of the model, I'm sure you understand now how to develop learner activities within theme plans, and how important the stages of the design process is. So the results of assessment basically will allow you as a teacher to think of alternative strategies to teach skills or concepts. So remember, it's always important to reflect. All the best, students. I'm here to support you.